I'm going to start the recording, but we're going to give the folks just a couple more minutes to join us before we get started. Appreciate everybody being on time here. Cleveland, Melbourne, Florida, Waco, Texas. We all know Waco a lot more now with Chris and Joanna Gaines.
And Baylor winning the national championship basketball tournament this year.
That's true, yeah.
And Dr. Pepper.
Well, Robert knew it all about Waco from the beginning, I suppose. All right, well, let's get started, Dave. It's about 12:01, 12:02. Some folks may join a little late, but we'll be good. And let's kick it off. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Corey. Perfect. So welcome, everyone. My name is Dave Hernandez. I'm the Vice President of Education for IPC. We're sorry that we're not sharing our videos of ourselves today. There was a little bit of an issue when we set up the webinar, and so we're having a technical issue where we actually can't share the videos. So we are going to be sharing our screen so you can see everything that we are going to be doing and showing you today. I will be joined in a little bit by Carlos Plaza, who is our Senior Director of Education for IPC. So today we're going to be talking about workforce training and the workforce training programs that IPC has started to release late last year, and what we're going to be doing in the near future as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to walk you through some slides to talk about the programs, why we're doing what we're doing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Carlos, and he's going to actually give you a live demo. On the bottom of your screens, you should see that there's a chat option as well as a Q&A option. If you have a question at some point during the presentation, just go ahead and drop it in the Q&A box. I can't guarantee that I will be able to see the question and answer it while I'm going through everything. But before I turn it over to Carlos, I'll make sure that if there's any pertinent questions that we need to answer right away, we will. And what we will do is we will set some time aside at the end of the webinar to go through all those questions. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So this first slide is really talking about IPC certifications. I'm sure that most of you have heard about our certification programs and have had some exposure to it. To give you guys a little bit of a scope of what we do, we offer a series of 5 different certification families. The 3 most popular ones, the CIS Specialist, the CIT Instructor, and the CSC, the Standards Expert. All of these are what we call standards-based certifications. That means that they are based around understanding and utilization of IPC standards in the workplace. To give you a little bit of scope as to how widespread and ubiquitous our certification programs are, we currently offer our certification programs in over 200 countries and in 21 different languages. In 2019, we certified 108,000 individuals. And in 2020, even during the pandemic year, we certified 95,000 individuals globally. So this program for certification is I use the word ubiquitous on purpose. You know, this is a program that is well utilized in the industry and is well accepted and well known. So why did we go about building the workforce training programs when we already had a very successful certification system in place? Well, there were several things that the industry started to identify for us as far as being needs that are not being met by the certification programs by themselves. First, oftentimes the certification programs are not really designed for entry-level individuals for teaching basic skills. The certification programs themselves are an assessment or a series of assessments that gauge an individual's competency in a particular area. And since our certifications are really focused around the IPC standards, there's a whole nother set of knowledge specifically what we call workplace knowledge, that is missing from that equation. Beyond that, there was a lack of options for organizations. So certification is very much a one size fits all type of approach. One of the things that makes certification valuable is that it's standardized around the world. Every organization around the world in 200 countries that utilize the certification programs in the exact same way. Um, that also poses a problem on the flip side, though, which is that organizations that have different needs may not be seeing all of their needs met through the standardized type of program. There was also a question of how do organizations standardize knowledge and vocabulary outside of a standard? So the utilization of a standard and the utilization of training and certification dealing with IPC standards, it really meets that need for the standards-based component. But what about everything else? Right? Where do individuals learn kind of that baseline job-based knowledge that they need to be successful, not only in doing that particular job, but also in the certification programs later on? And then the other thing is that, certification by its nature is backwards facing. In order for us to have a certification program, typically there's a standard, it's adopted, there is a certain amount of acceptance in the industry. The industry has been using this for some time, and then we build the certification program. Well, what do you do when technology is evolving so quickly that your emerging needs, right, are popping up and need to be addressed immediately? Well, and that's one of the things where we think that certification may not be the fastest route to that. The fastest route to that may be training. So how does our workforce training programs, and these are training programs themselves, right? They're meant to teach people competencies, not to assess whether they have them or not. How do these workforce training programs fit into our certification scheme that is so well adopted by the industry? Um, we think it fits in fairly well. There are individuals who, when they join your organization or when they're ready for a new job in your organization, already have a lot of those skills in place and they're ready to kind of go straight to certification. And so they may go through a certification training program to review the information that's in the standard before taking their certification assessments. And there's some of those individuals that are just not ready for that. And that's really where workforce training may fit in to the certification scheme. But it also exists way beyond just the certification scheme. There are going to be individuals that you maybe don't need certified, but that still need those basic skills. So we decided to kind of build the system, where it kind of feeds into certification for those individuals that need certification, but also can provide that level of knowledge and skill to everyone. The goals of our programs really are, and you'll hear us use these three words often. We wanted to build training that was engaging, efficient, and effective. What does that mean? Well, it really means that we wanted to keep students interested in training. We want to put them through a training program where they're sitting there and they're not bored. We want them to be interested in what they're learning. That in turn, if you can do that, is going to help reduce the learning time and the learning cost, right? Because the individual who is interested and engaged in the learning is going to be learning at a faster rate than those that are just trying to pass, through something because they just need to do it. I just need to pass through this training because I'm forced to do it. And then finally, the last part of that is really about increasing learner retention. This is actually something that we've already been seeing with organizations that have adopted workforce training as part of their certification scheme. We're seeing that individuals that go through the workforce training are able to actually cut down on the amount of training that they need for certification by as much as half. At least that's the statistics that we're hearing back from organizations that are implementing this. So how did we go about building these programs? We truly believe in the idea that we are building these programs for and with the industry. Um, I would go so far as to say that the industry actually built these programs. We were just merely the facilitators. The industry, we interviewed for the assembly operator program. We interviewed nearly 60 organizations globally in hour-long, 90-minute long interviews to really understand the skills and knowledge that their operators needed. So we then worked with a group of those organizations to structure the program. They developed the content outline. Once we had that content outline in place, we validated that with a larger group of organizations across in the industry, and this is across verticals, across geographies. Then we developed an A team, and the A team was a group of organizations that really, and we have an A team for every program, and that A team is different for every program. It's a group of organizations that have specialized knowledge in this area, and they kind of work with us day in and day out to help develop it. So they may have different experts from inside their organizations that work with us in helping us, put together the content, uh, get some of the graphics, videos, things like that that we need. Once it's done, once the industry has finished putting everything together, our instructional designers kind of get in there, get their hands dirty, put everything together into a bundle, and then we kind of put that out to the industry to test. Each of our programs is out for a period of time in what we call beta testing. And that beta testing really is helping us make sure that our program meets all the needs of what we set out to do. One of the things that we're trying to do with these programs is really to have them be as flexible as possible. And what do we mean by that? I'm going to use two examples of how these programs are structured to show you the flexibility of implementation. The two programs we'll talk about today, the two main programs we'll talk about today, the assembly operator, and we'll touch very briefly on the wire harness as well, the wire harness operator, because that's releasing next week. Both those programs are available in what's called the asynchronous program or a self-paced online course. So this is a traditional e-learning course. Carlos is going to give you a demo of what that looks like. We also provide these in an instructor-led version. And again, this is something that the industry requested for the operator level training. The theory being that for operator level training, there is a need for the individuals, there may be the need for some individuals, some organizations to actually use a live instructor to train the individuals versus having the individuals go through on their own through the asynchronous version. We also have some organizations that we've started to see utilize what's known as a hybrid approach to this. They utilize a little bit of both. They'll have the online version, the synchronous version of the course for most of their students, and then they'll also have a live instructor in the classroom that is helping the students through it or is explaining things to the students. So we're seeing different modalities being implemented for the programs. We also have designed the program so that there's a lot of flexibility in what content is taught and how it's taught. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But both of these programs have what's called your general knowledge, your required modules. So these are the modules that the industry has said that every operator needs to know. And then we have modules that are focused around specific job functions. And so these are up to the organization to determine what it is they want to implement. We utilize what's called a micro-learning approach, which is that we try to make it so that it's very easy to learn through these programs. We use a lot of video and interactives and animations to keep the student engaged, but also we spend no more than like 5 or 6 minutes before we stop and make sure that the student has understood what has just been taught in these programs. So there's a constant opportunity for students to either use assessments to validate what they've already learned in that 5 or 6 minutes beforehand, or there's some sort of an activity where they have to implement, where they have to utilize what they've learned in some sort of an activity. We also, these programs are professionally narrated with professional voice actors. And then we utilize industry supplied visuals. So these are real visuals from real plants around the world that are utilizing this. We also have post and pre-assessments that help measure learning, how much the student has learned. Students get instant feedback. They have the ability to go back and retrain. We try to take all the stress out of testing. Certification, there's a lot of stress for the individual when they test. We try to do away with that as much as possible with any sort of assessments we have in this program. That's mostly because of the fact that this is a training program, not a certification program. And then we also provide optional hands-on activities for organizations. We provide a user guide to organizations, say, if you're going to implement this program, here are some potential hands-on activities you may want to do with your students to really reinforce what they're learning in the program. And when we talk about user-centric learning, and it's something that is core to our philosophy, our educational philosophy, is that we want active learners, not passive learners. Right now, you guys are being passive learners, right? I'm talking to you as an instructor. You're sitting there listening, watching my screen, absorbing what I tell you. That's passive. We want active learners. We want people that are engaged. We want people that are doing activities and doing things to really show and implement what they learn on a constant basis. We want students that are doing things as they learn, not just kind of sitting there. Um, but when we talk about user-centric learning, really one of the keys to that is the idea that individuals learn at different rates. You know, when you're in a classroom, you're kind of forced as an instructor to ensure that the class is progressing at the pace it needs to progress, but you're trying to get as many of the students progressing at that rate as you can. You can't really be providing every student individualized care. That's kind of the difference when it comes to asynchronous online learning, because those individuals are progressing at their pace. If they don't understand the concept, they can go back, they can review it, they can spend more time with it. Whereas if they already know a concept, they don't get bored by having to go through it all. They can kind of go through it very quickly. And the system is designed to help students identify what are the things that they truly know, what are the things they think they know but they may not know, and what are the things where they really need to spend time learning. We have a series of workforce development training programs that have already been released, and there's quite a bit more that are in development. Um, Today, Carlos is going to show you a little bit about the Electronics Assembly for Operators program. We recently did a webinar for the Wire Harness for Operator program. If you'd like to take a look at it, it is available on the website. But that program is launching next week. We also have 3 optional add-on programs, the 610-001 and 620 for operator programs. These are not the same thing as what you would receive for certification training. These are short modules that are meant to introduce the standard to someone who has never opened 610 or 001 or 620. And then we have a Soldering Fundamentals 1 course, which is really designed to kind of teach the fundamentals of soldering. We also have a series of design training programs. These are for PCB designers. These are all taught as live online training programs, which means they're scheduled from this day to that day on specific times with the instructor. You go to lectures, and then every week you have projects that you're completing and turning into the instructor and meeting with the instructor and getting feedback. This is what's called a project-based curriculum. And then we also have a series of other programs that are coming out soon. We have PCB assembly, wire harness inspector, tester programs. We're also working on an electronics assemblies for engineers program that's coming out very soon. So you'll be hearing quite a bit about that in the next few months. Looking at the assembly, the electronic assembly for operators program, this program is actually divided into 2 sections, like I mentioned before. You have your mandatory modules on the left. These are the names of the different modules on there. If you were to do all of this training on your own, typically from what we're seeing with students, it's taking about 16 to 20 hours to get through all of that. Then on the right-hand side, you have the optional modules. These are all based around specific jobs. There's different implementation methods like we talked about. Excuse me. Some organizations want generalists, so they're training all of their operators in all of the modules so that they can utilize their operators in different, depending on where they're needed. And some of them really want specialists, and so they only really train them on the job that they need them to do. We also have, like I mentioned, the wire harness program, the wire harness operator program that is coming out next week. And this is a little bit of a shorter program. If you were to do all the mandatory modules, you're looking at about 12 to 16 hours worth of training, and the optional modules is an additional 12 to 16 hours of training. All this information is available on the web. Upon completion of the program, the students receive a certificate of qualification. This is not a certification. A certification from IPC states that you have passed a certification test. A certificate of qualification says that you have completed a course of study. So this is more akin to a diploma than a license, right? A license, in order to get a license, you have to complete a test or a series of tests. In order to get a diploma, you have to complete a series of courses. So the certificate of qualification is very similar to a diploma. It does state the username on there. It'll state all the modules they complete, and it will have a unique validation code that can be validated online, just like a certification would. So now that I've talked to you a little bit about the program, I'm actually going to turn it over to Carlos, and Carlos is going to run you through a live demo of the program. So Carlos, if you're about ready to go ahead and take care of that, and I will. There you go.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. So I will go through a few modules here, maybe two modules, parts of two modules, and try to keep it short so that we have enough time for questions and answers. If you have questions as we go along, please go ahead and jot them down there, and Robert or David will look there, or Corey, and kind of shout out to me, and I can stop and maybe answer your question as we go along. So the Electronics Assembly for Operators program, like all of our programs, are available through the Edge Learning Management System. It's very simple, very intuitive. It's really designed for anyone, including those who are not very familiar with taking courses online. So it's very effective, just about anyone, even people who are experts at this. But those who haven't really taken a lot of courses will find this very easy to use. And we do have information for those that are new to online instruction. We have our read before you begin section. We have our syllabus, tells each student, including the instructor for the instructor-led version, exactly what they're going to be looking at, all of the material they'll be covering at, and so there won't be any surprises. And so that the instructor can also prepare any in-house type of instruction that he or she would like to add to this baseline instruction, right? So we cover the fundamentals, but if we're talking about, say, components and component identification, we go through the major groups, but you may want to bring in some real life samples in the instructor-led version of components that you're specifically going to have that group working with. And you'll take that opportunity to bring those into the discussion and just add it right on to the course, right? After the general, then the specific. You have your module completions and your browser settings. I won't take up our time on that. In module 1, we also have an introduction video that tells students exactly how they'll go through the course. And that's basically, they'll have a pre-quiz, the main content, and then the post-quiz for each module. The pre-quiz is really a learning strategy, and we have several here. The learning strategy here is to introduce students to the concepts that they'll be learning. And it may not really, it doesn't matter that they don't know these concepts. It's a way of introducing them to what's going to be there, like a mind map or an organizational map. And it also, if they get some of those questions wrong, for example, and I'll go through one right here with everyone. Let's go to this component one, right? So you'll see here, they're very visual. Oh, and by the way, this is a very good point to have. It's very important to let the student know that this is not a test. It's a quiz, and there are no permanent consequences to it. This is all about learning. The pre-quiz, post-quiz, even the final exam is all about learning. In contradistinction to the certification, where we're verifying what you already know, here we want you to learn, and we want you to be able to look at your mistakes, see your mistakes, correct those mistakes so that you could prove to yourself and to your instructor or your employers that you do know the information. So we'll begin the quiz, right? Which of the following images is an example of a surface mount component, right? Even if you've never seen a PTH or an SMT component, you're guessing, but look, this one kind of goes through the hole. This is a surface mount. So you might get it right, you might get it wrong. So you just click and submit, right? Which best describes what electronics components do, right? We'll get this one right, control the flow of electricity. Which type of component is physically inserted? Get that one right. What do wires and cables carry to printed circuit boards, right? We'll get this one wrong. We'll say dust. And what type of terminal is this? And we'll get that one right, right? And so we got 80%, which is great. Congratulations. If we would have gotten anything less than 60%, it would have said try again and then offered me the review. In any case, you always get the review and you can go through and really see what you got right and what you got wrong. So say you've never seen a printed circuit board before. What's the point? You've never seen a terminal cup. Well, as human beings, when we get a question wrong, it gives us a little bit of pause, right? It makes us think. It creates what we might call kind of like a gap that you need to fill, so that when we see the same content explained during the main portion of the course, we'll immediately say, "Oh, that's the one that we're talking about. That's what that kind of terminal is. It's a cup terminal. Oh, that's what the service mount component is." It attunes them to filling the gap that was identified during the pre-quiz. So let's take a look at the main content here. We'll stick with component identification, right? So they've done the pre-quiz. They go into the main content. Oh, and let me pause and share the sound here.
Objectives outline the things you will be able to do by the end of this module. Please take a moment to review, then advance to the next slide and select a module section to begin.
So we have our learning objectives. Each module has the learning objectives enumerated, and you can always come back to these learning objectives and make sure that you are indeed able to identify the types of components or distinguish between component polarity and orientation and so on and so forth. The module menu here allows you, even if you've gone through this module, say, you've gotten down here to maybe active and passive components or polarity and orientation, and you think, you know what, maybe, what were they talking about there? What kind of component are they talking about here in this example with polarity? Well, you can jump back up and to axial and versus radial or multi-leaded. You can move about as you please in order to satisfy any of the questions that you might have as you move through. Or if you find yourself getting a question from your instructor, or you find yourself in a post quiz and you say, you know what, I got that one wrong, but I need to go back and see what I got wrong or why I got wrong. Well, they can always come back here and find it in the menu module, right? It's not just one and done. You can always go back and take a look at it. And one of the good things about this is that when you purchase the course, you have 90 days, not only to complete it, but to go back and review it if need be, right? So let's jump into polarity and orientation. And I'll talk a little bit about the different ways that we use content to make sure people are engaged and make sure that they know the basics before before we introduce more complicated topics that incorporate those basics, right? So we'll start with components before we talk about polarity, and polarity and orientation before we talk about wires and cables and so on and so forth in a scaffolding manner. One of the most important things to do is make sure that the person knows what they need to know in order to incorporate new information. So it's very much in an orderly fashion, another strategy called scaffolding. We use videos, we use very clear text and graphics, we use a lot of practice activities. All of these things are used to, again, engage, to become efficient, and to really get people learning in a way that doesn't take them a long time, but makes them feel sure about what they know. So we'll just jump in here. We'll go with the video.
Let's examine another important topic in component identification, the direction or orientation in which the component needs to be installed. Some components have both a positive and negative connection to the circuit board, and the leads must be inserted into the positive and negative holes identified on the board and the assembly drawing. Components with this positive and negative connection have what is called polarity. This works the same way as the positive and negative terminals on a battery. For components that have polarity, the negative lead is called the cathode, and the positive lead is called the anode. A plus or minus sign is usually marked on the component as well as on the assembly drawing.
And so I'll cut that short. It goes about 2 minutes, but the video really serves to put things, not only to convey information, but to show real life components in a real life setting. These videos were shot in, as you might guess, EMS and assembly plants, and they really introduce people to what things will really look like when they get to the job itself. And that increases the chances that people will remember things. If you see things in context, when you get to that context, it's much easier for you to make that connection in your mind and say, oh yeah, this is exactly what they were talking about in the training. Right? It's called transfer, and it really increases the ability of people to transfer the training to real life settings. So let's go to the next one and see how we use information.
Objects that have opposite ends, like the North and South Pole, are said to have polarity. Some electronic components have polarity because they have positive and negative leads or terminations. Polarity is often marked or indicated on the component itself. This is important because components need to be placed on the PCB in the correct orientation to work properly. Otherwise, the assembly will fail. Think about how you put batteries in a flashlight or a remote. Batteries have a negative and positive end, and if you put them in the wrong way, the product won't work. Polarity and orientation are indicated on components in different ways, depending on the type, which we'll look at next.
So you saw that we used a globe at the very beginning of this series right here, this slide point, and we use the analogy of a battery. We find that when people are new to the industry, or when anyone is new to any type of content that they haven't seen before, analogies to things that they already know about, like putting batteries in a component, in a mouse or anything else, remote control, or a globe in the terms of north and south, really help them connect and incorporate new things like polarity and orientation on a PCB board, which they've never seen before, possibly. It really helps them make that connection. And now that concept of polarity and orientation easily fits on the shelf where they think about, hey, how a battery goes into a remote control. If it's not going the right way, it's not going to work, and it might even harm the thing. So it's really a learning strategy that works really well for a large percentage of people, which is what we usually have, as David talked about earlier. We have people from different backgrounds with different experiences and at different stages of obtaining knowledge. So things that work for everyone are usually the most beneficial. We'll look a few more, maybe one or two more of these, and then we'll move right on.
When a component has polarity, it will usually indicate either the positive or negative lead or termination. Sometimes a plus sign will be used to indicate the positive lead, which is called the anode. Otherwise, a minus sign will be used to indicate the negative lead, which is called the cathode. Certain SMT components will use a line or a beveled edge that indicates the positive or negative end. Whether or not a component has polarity, it must still sometimes be oriented on the board correctly.
So we'll stop there. Now I'll jump right into a practice because I want to make sure we have enough time for questions. Very simple here. Remember, this is Module 6. Modules 1 through 9 in this program are the foundational modules. We're introducing you to the basics. What's the difference between a printed circuit board and a printed circuit board assembly? What's these things? What is polarity? Why is orientation important? The very basics. And later on in modules 9 through 18, we go through more specific job knowledge and skills. So we apply what we've learned in these first fundamental knowledge modules to more specific concepts like SMT. What do you need to do on an SMT line? What's that all about? What do you need to do when you're working with PTH boards, and so on and so forth? What are you doing with box builds, etc.? So these are more simple.
Follow the instructions to complete this practice activity. Then click Submit.
And so we learn here, right? We should be looking for this dimple to indicate the first one. So if I go over here, I click Submit, well, that's not going to work for us. But if I remember correctly, or if I don't, say I'm clicking around here and I don't know what's going on, I can easily go back and click here and say, okay, let me look at this again, and then come back to this practice. And that's exactly what you can do if you like to. For the sake of time, I won't do that. I'll click on the right one, Click Submit.
This completes this section of the module. Click the Home button to return to the module home page.
Right. And if you only have time to do one section of the module, these modules are pretty short, but if you only have time to do one section of the module and you want to go back and pick up later on, you go back here and you'll see that it will have checked off which one I already did. So when I come back to this module, I'll know I've already done polarity and orientation. That will show in my learning management system, and then I could just go on to the next ones that I haven't done. I just jumped to this one. Ostensibly, it's better to go in order, especially if you're someone who's starting from the beginning. So I'll leave it there with this module. I'll just go back in here into our learning management system. And again, here we have 1 through 9. When you finish the first 9 modules, you could take the final exam. The only thing you have to do to be able to take the final exam and download your certificate of qualification is get 70% or better on the post quiz, on each of the post quizzes in the first 9 or 8 modules. 9 modules. It really, again, is about learning. So if you go to this post quiz, you'll notice, and I'll go through these very quickly, because there's 10 questions on each. And again, you have 3 opportunities to achieve the passing score of 70%. What we want you to do is learn, not feel bad about not making it. It's not validating what you already know. It's making sure that you learn the new stuff. So if you begin the quiz and you go through, and we'll just go through kind of quickly. At the end of this, you'll have the opportunity to take it again. You'll have the opportunity to review your questions, go back, review what you got wrong, figure out why you got that wrong, and then come back and take it again, so that by the 3rd attempt, you'll be sure to not only get it right, but to know, because you reviewed it, that you're getting it right. So you get the best of both worlds. You pass the test, the quiz, but you pass it actually knowing what you're supposed to know, and so on. So I won't complete that, but that's the same concept there. And I'll go down here real quickly to, say, surface mount technology, right? Now, when you get down past the final exam, you can take 1 or more of the final 9 modules, which you see here cover more specific concepts: surface mount technology, through hole, wire and cable, hardware, conformal coating, press fit, and so on. So if we go into here, you'll see that we start to get to the nitty gritty. I'll restart here. And again, we use the same type of elements.
The following learning objectives outline the things you will be able to do by the end of this module. Please take a moment to review, then advance to the next slide and select a module section to begin.
So we're using the same elements: video, clear text, graphics, animations, in order to convey the information. But now we're getting into a little bit more.
After the printed circuit
nitty-gritty
boards have been inspected and baked, they're placed on a solder printer where solder paste is applied to the lands. Watch this video to learn more.
This is a stencil printer. Stencil printers apply solder paste onto the lands of the circuit board. Solder paste contains millions of solder balls mixed with a small amount of flux. A stencil is a metal sheet with holes that match the lands of a particular circuit board. The stencil rests on.
So, by the way, again, in scaffolding, they'll already know, and this is important with the fundamentals, they'll already know what solder is, the role that solder plays. They'll already know what a land is. Everything.
One of the first things
the concepts that are talked about there, the points that are talked about there that aren't covered, were already covered. So we can move swiftly into something like solder paste application on this machine, because they already know what solder paste is. They already know what a land is, etc. And then we can introduce the new concepts, and they already know those older concepts. We're just building on top of them. This particular module goes through the solder paste application, and I'll kind of scroll through here, and this is all narrated. And you can see that it goes through the process of what they'll be actually doing at some point on an SMT line if they're dealing with solder paste application. And at this point, I'll jump over to a few other elements. Each slide has notes so that if you want to actually read or follow along with what's going on in the narration, you can do so. You can access the glossary at any point. The glossary covers all of the terms that we use, so you can always refer back to them if you have any doubts as to what something is or what something means. You can always jump in or jump out of that.
One of the first things used in the
We'll stop
starter
there. That's my 20 minutes, folks. I want to stay true to our time. If anyone has any questions about this, I can take them now, or we can go into the general questions. David, Corey, Robert, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Carlos.
Welcome.
We have about 5 minutes left in the webinar, maybe 6 minutes left in the webinar. I've been trying to answer questions as they've come in to the question box, to the Q&A box. If you have any question, please drop them in there, and we'll go ahead and answer them. I wanted to comment on a comment that just came in from Angela. She said she was happy to see more adult learning principles being utilized in these programs. Angela, thank you for recognizing that. We have, Carlos and I both have extensive careers as educators. The education team as a whole is actually a combination of both industry trainers, people who have been doing training in the electronics industry for several decades, as well as we have instructional designers with advanced degrees in education. So we're really trying to find a balance between kind of adult learning principles and ensuring we're also designing the programs in a way that is really designed for the specific target audience that we're looking at.
I'm going to jump in here. If we have any more questions, just feel free to throw them in the QA or in the chat. But let's raffle off our $100 gift card, because some of our advertisements for this, some of you may not know this, but we are raffling off a $100 gift card for attendees. So don't leave just yet. I'm running my random number generator as we speak, and I'll be picking that. All right, it looks like Reese Huey. I see you're still here. So if you want to chat me, I'm IPC Webinars. If you want to chat me directly, your contact information, I already have that as well. I'll be able to pull that up from your registration. But if you want to just acknowledge you've won the $100 gift card, I'll make sure I get that off to you.
Thank you, Corey.
David, can you answer the one about instructor for these programs?
Yes, I'll answer all the comments that are coming in.
All right, great.
So Scott asked a question about how someone becomes an instructor for this program. And the answer is that when you take the asynchronous online version, so the self-paced online version, where there's no live instructor, then anyone can purchase that at that point. It can be purchased by any individual, either for themselves or for someone else. When you're purchasing the instructor-led version, it has to be purchased by someone who has an IPC CIT certification. Right, that's the only requirement we have. It needs to be taught by someone who is a CIT. It does not need to be a CIT in a specific program, but that is the bare minimum. Let me take a look at some of these other questions here. So Heather said it's not a question, but I think this is a great move forward. I have been an IPC CIT for 10 years, and this is a great gap filler. Thank you, Heather. This is exactly what we've been trying to accomplish. So we're trying to really kind of find those gaps in the industry that the industry identifies and fill them as best we can. Very nice materials. Danish translation would look nice also. Really nice and also great. Yeah, we're looking into the different translations. As I mentioned earlier, the 2 Spanish versions of the courses will be the first ones that are going to be coming out. And those, the assembly operator Spanish version will be released next week. And then the wire harness Spanish version will be released at the beginning of summer. And then we are looking to do more of these programs in various languages. So it's a matter of trying to figure out how much how we can do so effectively and efficiently. It looks, Brian asked, it looks like this training is available for a limited time when purchased. Is this the case? Or is it an individual cert of qualification like a 610, 620 certification? So you get a certificate of qualification upon completion of the program. Students have 90 days to complete the program. The reason we do a 90-day period to complete the program is because there's been a number of studies, especially with training, with any sort of training, where if students are not given a deadline for completion, there's a larger portion of them that never complete the actual training. So we give students 90 days to complete the training. That way they can kind of either do it little by little or they can do it all at once. They have time to kind of come back and learn through the material. What we find is the vast majority of students complete the program within the first 2 weeks. Some of them come back and kind of check in on it once in a while, but mostly those first 2 weeks are really where most of the learning takes place. Any plans for specification, to specifications in soldering for piezo ceramic? At this time right now, no, but that is something that we can look into. Gaston wanted to know how much the training is. So the basic, so each one of the programs that we talked about, the assembly operator program and the wire harness operator program, start at rather they cost $200 per user for the 90 days if you're a member, and then I believe it's $275 if you're not a member of IPC. But that price goes down based upon utilization and number of licenses and stuff like that. And you get access to the entire program, all the modules, everything for that period of time.
You have a question on expiration, David?
Heather wanted to know, as this is a qualification, not a certificate, does it expire? Yes, this was actually one of the things that the industry kind of decided they wanted. They wanted to say that operators should undergo some sort of refresher training every 2 years. So that's what we have on the certificates. The certificates do say they're good for 2 years, and that at that point the student needs to go through some sort of refresher training. We're working with the industry now to design that refresher training. It is not going to be the full 40 hours of training. It's really meant to say, hey, we want you to come back and make sure that you've retained all this information. Also, if technology has changed or if there have been significant changes in the industry, we want to make sure that we have the ability to actually go through and update you on that stuff.
There's one about language, David. Tamil.
Yeah, like I mentioned, we are going to be answering. We're going to be releasing the Spanish version of this training next week, and then another one in the summer. And we're looking at the possibility of doing this in several other languages. We have not decided what languages we're going to be doing just yet. These are relatively new programs. We just started releasing the workforce training programs in, I believe it was September of last year. So these programs are not very old. This is our first iteration at kind of doing all this. So there's a lot of exciting activity ongoing, but there's also still a lot of potential growth for us here. We'll keep you posted as far as when new languages are going to be coming out. All right. I don't see any other questions here. So
I don't either. I think.
Mike Stone, who's the IPC Senior Director of Business Development, wanted me to let everyone know that if you have any other questions about the programs, if you wanted to have any idea of how the pricing works when it comes to group pricing and stuff like that, or if you wanted to just talk to someone about setting up a demo or playing around in the program, things like that, please email sales@ipc.org. That is the shortest email we can think of to give you. So sales@ipc.org, and they'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have on it, set you up with a demo, anything like that. So thank you everyone for your time today. I'm sorry, go ahead, Corey.
We will be we'll be replying to everyone that attended, as well as anybody that registered, with the recording of this webinar, as well as the information David was suggesting that Mike has. Do feel free to email sales.ipc.org. And if you have any Spanish speaking compatriots or colleagues, we are going to we'll also include a link to a Spanish language webinar for EAO that's happening on the 20th of this month.
Okay. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We appreciate your time today. And thank you for the great questions and discussions. And hopefully we'll be speaking together again very soon. Have a wonderful
Thanks.
day.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.